Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Northern California with Dr. Ian Davis-Tremayne. Can you kind of just get us started, Dr. Ian, by introducing yourself and reflecting on that moment in life when you decided you want to become a chiropractor? What was it that attracted you to this path?
Yeah, man. So I'm a chiropractor up in Marin County in California. I specialize primarily in upper cervical, but we're not dogmatic, so we do what's necessary in the moment. I would say that I've been in practice since 2008 at this point, so it's been a while. Lots of changes, lots of really fun times with different um, successes and whatnot. But getting into chiropractic, I've been in chiropractic my whole life, and since I was 4, I should say. I didn't know I wanted to be a chiropractor. I wanted to be a musician. And during the process of being a musician, I was actually extremely bored because I was a professional musician, so I worked at night. So during the day, I used to go to, I became an EMT. So I started doing like EMT school and medic school. And I was trying to figure out if I even cared about being a musician anymore because the lifestyle was just really intense. And I didn't really like cocaine and hookers and strippers and stuff. So I really realized it's not my bag. And during that time, doing all this medical stuff, I realized I want to be a doctor of some sort. The hard part for me is I don't really dig traditional Western medicine all that much. Even like growing up, we just didn't do that. We always did like the natural means first before we went anywhere else. So while I was in school for being an EMT and a medic, I started working also as an ER tech and realized that I wanted to do emergency medicine, like trauma surgery. But the downside to that is I have no life at all. And I really wanted to take care of people who I had constant interaction with, as opposed to I see them once and hopefully they survive. This is like I can change someone's life over time. So I talked to my chiropractor actually, and he's like, you should go to Life West and be a chiropractor. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And literally a week later, I was applying to be a chiropractor. I just didn't think about it. I also only thought there was one school. So I thought like Life West was the chiropractic school, and that's where he went because I know there's so many options, so many being relative, obviously. So that's how I became a chiropractor. Like I decided to be a chiropractor. I just wanted to change people's lives while knowing that chiropractic's been something in my blood for so long.
Just knowing what you know now with all the experience that you have, what would you do to sort of prepare yourself for chiropractic school if you could think in a theoretical way? Obviously, you can't go back, but if you had like a kid or a friend or even a person that came to see you say, hey, I want to go to chiropractic school, I've got a year left before I'm eligible, how would you maybe encourage them to approach the path?
That's a great question. I think there's a handful of answers that become one answer on that. One would be, I think if you're considering it, you should start working for a chiropractor, at least for a little bit. Be honest with them. Like, I want to be a chiropractor, but I want to learn. I've had a few people do that now, which has been great. One of them is killing it out. Christina Kobler, she's killing in Boulder. I would say that working for a chiropractor is smart. I do think if you're still in college, you should consider minoring in business and also learning the other side of chiropractic, which is actually being a business owner, how to invest properly. Because eventually, like I'm 14 years in and my body is definitely hurting right now. And I'm so happy I've made proper investments. So in theory, if I had to bail or sell the practice or something, I'm still living okay. And then the other part is also getting your hands on people. I think it's important volunteering for health clinics or like homeless shelters, like things like that, and learning not just how to like touch people and be okay with that, but how to connect with people who are in distress. There's a big difference when you walk into certain clinics. Like our clinic always feels like, even though we're crazy busy, we feel calm. And people sit in our chair, they think they're the only people who are talking to us the whole day, but I'm talking to 110 people in a day, but learning how to connect with people who are in distress and being able to bring them down just by connecting and being a certain element for them as opposed to trying to talk them down. It's a way different experience.
That's powerful. Can you maybe just unpack what 110 people in a day feels like, just direct experience of what it's like to care for others at that type of volume. Because, let's just face it, most people thinking of going into healthcare are thinking physical therapy. You may only see 6 to 10 people a day.
Sure.
As a medical doctor, it might even be less than that, depending on what you're offering. So as a chiropractor, speaking of the volume and the amount of people that you can actually impact directly and then indirectly, all the people that they touched. But can you maybe just speak about that sort of organized chaos, shall we call it?
Yeah. Well, that's actually exactly what it is. It's organized chaos. Like everything we do has a system. Everything. Patients don't necessarily know it as a system, but we are a system. Like we live it. So communicating with someone when they're in your room for maybe 2 minutes, like tops, and they think they feel like they've been there for 20 minutes, that's like an art in itself. So it's like, and there's a great book that is really important for everyone to start reading. Like right now, it's just here. Actually, I probably have it. Nonviolent Communication. This book specifically was a game changer for me, and one of my students actually gave it to me. And it went from me feeling busy at 30 and being overwhelmed to me not feeling overwhelmed at all at 100 plus, is how you communicate with people. So be able to actually like hear someone and connect with them. But the difference is that every time someone's talking to me, I'm still moving. I never stop and go like, let's sit and talk. Like we can't do that. We don't have the option to do that anymore. So I'm always working on them, putting love and intent in what I'm doing as they're communicating with me. I'd say also that when you come into our office, nobody knows we're having a bad day. That's like one of our rules for the staff. Nobody can know you're having a bad day. So you got to say like, leave your crap at the door. We literally have to do that. So when you walk in, you feel like you're walking into a healing center without even being touched yet. And if people already feel that, then they come to you with only acceptance and appreciation as opposed to like, let me dump my crap on you, And sure, like out of like 100, let's say like yesterday we said 109. And out of those, like there's a good 10, 15 who like are heavy, but at least they're not my only 10 or 15. The other ones overpower that with the positivity. It's pretty cool. It's a dance,
Absolutely. And I can speak, when I was a student, I can speak from experience of having walked through the doors at your office 10, 11 years ago now. And it was an experience that you created. How did you design that experience? Obviously, you didn't start with the space that you've grown in. You had to start maybe with a smaller space or in another person's space. Can you kind of reflect on what that path looked like for you? Because I don't think that when I met you as a student and I was in the office that I believe you're still in.
No, we're still there. Same one. Yeah, dude. Well, I started in someone else's practice for about 5 months. That was my total. But my practice there grew really quickly. I was actually going to buy that practice, but my personal practice expanded quickly during that. So I had to leave and open somewhere else. So I signed a lease on a building literally a block away. It used to be the art store when I was growing up because I'm working in my hometown. So I already had a connection to the building. I told my dad I wanted to open a guitar store there once when I was a teenager. So I knew that was kind of a place for me. But designing it, I think what I don't enjoy is walking into anyone's clinic where it's sterile and white. I just don't like that feeling. I don't like the stethoscope and white coat. Like, it is like, and I worked in clinics like that. So like, and vet clinics too. I was a vet tech for a long time. So that environment is very like, it's almost hostile, and everyone's sick and everyone needs something fixed and stuff. Whereas we wanted to create a place where you're already feeling like you're healing when you're walking in, because you're going to see these people multiple times, hopefully for the rest of their lives and yours. That we want that place that always feels like a sanctuary. So our design process was no white walls, for instance, no chiropractic scare care posters everywhere. We have like a spine that I can use as demonstration if I need to. And then everything, we have like Buddhas on the wall, and we have a resting suite where it's all dark and like really like low and mellow, so you can nap back there after an adjustment. So everything we want to do is create the healing vibe before you even see me as a doc, Can
you go deeper with that and really just unpack what you're doing to somebody's nervous system throughout the visit, from the analysis to the adjustment to the resting, and kind of how you've developed, to use your word, system so that you're able to get maybe reproducible results, or you're able to be objective or as much as you can, or you're able to have it make sense for people?
Yeah. So our first of all, it always starts with the first day education. Like we educate nonstop, but we don't do it in like listen to my seminar. Like my first visit with people, we're connecting, but I'm also explaining why we do what we do in upper cervical. And if we get into more of like an upper cervical world, we're looking at brainstem function, autonomic system function. So we have tools to actually measure the effect of the subluxation on the nervous system and determine if we should or should not adjust. The goal is not to adjust. So my ultimate thing in the first visit is educating people that you're not here for the adjustment, you're here to hold. And they're already like, oh wow, that's cool. It's like going to a medical doctor. A medical doctor says, you're not here for a pill, you're here to not take pills. Like that should be the goal. So when we set the goal up already that we don't want to adjust, people really appreciate that. So we're already setting that up. But by saying that, though, is actually the important part because it puts them at ease. Like, oh, this is here to heal, not just take care of my symptom. And we say we're cause-based care, not symptom-based care. But when you come in, it's like a normal visit. You're hanging out in the waiting room. You're probably going to wait 10, 15 minutes realistically because we're pretty busy. But there's tea. You're having tea. Our front desk is offering you tea. You're watching the flow of people walking in and out. Me joking and high-fiving people and hugging people, and Dr. Dominic doing the same thing, and people rubbing their eyes after like waking up from their nap. Like people, they're looking happy and like, thank God I came today. And as a newer patient, you're like, this is where I need to be. It's not just like following the herd. You actually feel like you're a part of it. And I think like when you come into my office, immediately I'm scanning your nervous system with my Titronics, making sure we need to adjust that part of your spine today. If we don't or we do, we can still check other things. We're communicating, you're resting. We're always post-checking, making sure we made the proper adjustment and did the work neurologically, because you can get adjusted, this, but you can get adjusted where you actually feel worse at first because your body's processing. It's like, oh shit, that's not normal, right? But we can prove it to them. We're actually going through the process you need to go through. So they walk away feeling like something happened and is currently still processing and happening. And so they're walking away like rewarded almost. I think part of the system too that I want to like really throw in there, and because I coach a lot of docs, and I think one of the main things that people mess up on is they always schedule the next visit when they're leaving, but you can skip a lot of people that way. We set everyone up day one on their schedule, and that schedule is set. So they already have it set. They don't have to think about it anymore. That's also part of it. You're not walking out paying. You're not walking out scheduling. You're just walking out because it's already taken care of, and we'll make sure you're taken care of.
These are the little details of the experience that students are not thinking about, especially when they're getting out of school and they're maybe a little burnt out, they're fatigued, they're overwhelmed. So I really want to sort of pre-frame the experience of being a chiropractor before you get to chiropractic school, and you're doing a great job of just giving us insight into what your expression of your practice is like. So I really appreciate that. Can you kind of just give some marching orders or some resources to a student that knows they want to study upper cervical specifically, and maybe the program that you've created, the details of that program, and why it's important that they have structure to their training, because there is so much to it?
Yeah. So like when you get in school, for instance, you're kind of given the basics, and most people become like masters of adjusting over the weekends. They're not doing it at school. And that's something that schools will also sell you on. They'll say that you learn everything you need to know here. That's not true in any way. You don't learn business properly because you're truly learning it for someone who's failed in business. You're learning the basic adjusting, but you're not practicing enough. If you went to school with myself and my crew that I hung out with, we spent all breaks adjusting. There's no question about it. We're having our hands on each other. We're palpating, whatever you want to call it. But we're doing everything we can to be practicing so we can master the craft, because you want to be an amazing adjuster more than anything. But during class, I'm studying business. I'm reading green books about philosophy. I'm like really picking brains. I actually would ditch during classes. You'd sign in, ditch, and go talk to some of the teachers who were working, who actually were great adjusters, and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? I work with them. But when it comes to upper cervical, it's such a niche type of chiropractic, and there's niches within the upper cervical profession. all of them work, all of them are amazing. But if you're really interested in doing it, you got to try them all out and see which ones are truly like connecting with you. Like the one I do specifically is called knee chest, and also we do side lying solid headpiece, which is knee chest on your side. Those adjustments right there literally changed and saved my life. So that's why I do it. It's that simple. But when I read, there's a green book called Volume 18, and that Volume 18 is like the Bible for upper cervical. When I read through that the first time, I had no idea what I read. It was like so much information. It's like a stream of thought. It's insane. My third time reading that book is when it clicked and hit. And that's when I started talking to all these different people who are just killing it in upper cervical. By going through training, like I went through pretty much every group there was at the time and realized that there's very specific things that were repeated often within all the groups, that they all hated each other because they're obviously competitors, which I don't believe in competition. But with that being said, there's certain things that they all did similar. Then I started having students like yourself, for instance. I had these students who come and hang out with me in my office and like pick my brain and talk about upper cervical because they weren't really getting it at school. And then my partner and I at the time were like, let's just start a group and we'll just create a course off of what we learned and make it as detailed oriented possible, but very art specific. And because the adjustment's the most important part that you're really learning. Analysis is very important to know if we should or should not adjust, but actually being able to deliver is really important. A lot of the other crews weren't focusing on that as much as the analysis. So we flipped it. And also, we're not dogmatic. So we like people learning upper cervical, even if they're going to be full spine chiropractors, so at least they know what they're doing in that specific region. So we created a course that's like it's a 5-module course. It's typically done over 2 to 3 weekends. And we work with you in between all the modules. So you're building yourself as a chiropractor and an adjuster and being able to analysis, even when we're not there online, and we're coaching you through the whole thing at the same time. So we like people being masters at adjusting when they get out of it.
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah. It's called USP Revolution, by the way. Upper Cervical Revolution.
Well, cut me out of there. Can you also touch on the Dream Docs project and what the inspiration behind that was? And I imagine that's why you mentioned before that you're coaching a lot of docs these days, or students.
Yeah, so Dream Docs, it came together with my friend Jacob Sims. We both coached. I coached before, just doing one-on-one with people, my own thing called Success Principles, and he was coaching another big group out there. And then we came together and joined forces. What we really realized that there's a lot of coaches out there who are not in the trenches and they're giving advice, but they're actually not experiencing their own advice, which drove us nuts. But the other part is some people are really actually good at coaching, great at business, but they're really horrible actually doing it themselves. And that's fine. We're really good at all that. And we kind of realized we both have strengths and weaknesses. So we joined forces. But our main thing is we will make coaching affordable for people who are just starting, because our main avatar we're working with are people who are just getting out of school and people who are just opening practices. And then we also have the people who need to like clean up all their stuff so they can start making more money, and they feel like they're burnt out because they're overworked and underpaid, even though they're their own boss, So we coach mainly students and new docs, though. That's our main thing. And we wanted to create an affordable system that we can coach you through and walk you through, but based off of you and your dreams, not ours. Not like just replicate what I do, it'll work. Let's actually see what you want to do and create that system. Some of it will be replication because some just simple business tactics. But other than that, like the other thing that drives me nuts is that we aren't taught, especially in school, how to do taxes, how to do write-offs, how to invest, all that. Well, that's my thing. Like I'm obsessed with this. I love to share it. And Dr. Jacob's amazing with mindset work. So you put those things together, you create a freaking powerhouse.
Can you just slow down a little bit on that section right there and just kind of unpack? Obviously, it's off the top of your head. You might not hit on every single aspect, but being a small business owner comes with a lot of responsibility, whether people realize it or not. And taxes is one of them. Investing is another. Hiring. Can you maybe just kind of touch on some of the things that you key in on or that you've witnessed people have struggled with that might be prevented if they started becoming more aware of it in undergrad or even in the beginning of chiropractic school, and that they could maybe like slowly go through all the different aspects of what it's like to be a small business owner?
Yeah, man. So in school, what I got obsessed with, and I was already obsessed with this stuff, to be honest, because I used to work for my mom, who was one of the people who like helped build Silicon Valley. Like, she was a genius. I did all of her bookkeeping starting at 10 years old. So I started learning numbers really well. I started learning write-offs really well. And I started learning about taxes. I always went to all the tax appointments with her too. And her tax accountant is now mine. So like, we have a good relationship. But as a small business owner, most people don't realize you can't just be a good adjuster. You know, you need to be able to have a staff and manage that staff. I'll teach you that. Like, I know how to do that pretty well. Um, you need to understand, like, you need to be a corporation, not a sole proprietor. And most people are a corporation. They're like, especially now these days, people think like corporations are evil. Not at all. Corporation is actually amazing, and it's a safety net for you. You get to pay less taxes, and you also, if something goes wrong, you're protected. So there's a really great reason why be an S corp or an LLC elected as an S corp. So I'll walk you through how to actually become one of those and what those mean specifically. And they're all state dependent too. Something that was really interesting that came out recently is, you know, all these people are fighting for Trump's taxes come out, and they were looking for the negative. He didn't do anything wrong. He literally followed the tax code to the T and worked it. Now he's a crook, as we know, in many senses, but what he did on taxes was totally legit. And reading over it, that's how I do my taxes. So there's a reason why I make a lot of money and I don't pay much in taxes, because I'm smart about it. But learning how to do write-offs, like everything should be a write-off. A write-off is something that gets taken away from your taxes. You don't have to pay any taxes on it. Well, if there's very special ways, like I wrote off my Rolex, you know, there's ways you can do those things. And you got to be smart about it. You can write off all your cars. You can rent a car parking spot at your house to yourself as a small business owner, because you now have an office in your house. You know, I have a Tahoe place in Tahoe. I write that off because I lend it out to my staff, you know, and it's a business expense. So payroll, you know, just even know how to do payroll. I think what starts happening is like, and this, I fell into this too in the beginning. You think you're not significant enough, so you don't do the smart things ahead of time. And you think, oh, I'm a small thing right now. I'm only making like 80,000 this year or something. And so you're just kind of like, okay, nothing will go wrong. But the truth is, if you don't set up yourself for success later, you're going to still be stuck in those same systems. You're going to pay your taxes, a ton in taxes. And I keep talking about taxes because it's like, I think the number one thing I'm working on with docs who need help, who are like, I'm making $1 million, but I'm only keeping this much. Why is it happening? It's like, because you're giving the government all your money. You know, you're not writing off anything. Your business can pay for almost everything for you, and you don't have to worry about it. So I think when it comes to business, though, like I'm obsessed with playing the game. You know, it's fun. It's not scary. And just one quick tip too: when you're looking for an accountant, ask them how many times you've been audited. If they say, "Oh no, I make sure we don't get audited," that's a bad tax accountant. You want someone who's actually not scared to get audited and will play in the gray area for you and willing to play the game with you. If they're too intense about following every single rule, that's going to be a negative for you, because you're going to pay a ton more back in taxes, and you're paying them for that service, which you could have just written a check to taxes, you know? So I help you find those people, which is, there's only a handful, you know, it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you touch on a number of things for me. I'm just curious. So, just to give you some insights, the program is, foundations, get familiar with chiropractic, develop your inner state, which is just breaking innate up into your inner scientist, thinker, artist, teacher, entrepreneur, and then become an apprentice, which is go to offices, immerse yourself in the experience of what it's like to be adjusted, to witness chiropractic care being offered. Like you said, get a job at an office if possible. And then the fourth one is a startup, pre-Chiro startup. Start your own club, start your own organization within a community of people where you can grow it and develop it. And then the fifth one is the capstone independent study, and the sixth one is the admissions process. Normally students skip the first five, but I'm just curious from you, if you were given some encouragement to a student who had learned about chiropractic, learned about the skill sets of what it's like to be a chiropractor, and then experienced it and wanted to share it with their college campus community, what type of way would you have them approach that experience? Let's just think of it as a project. If you could kind of just creatively construct a framework of how students can maybe start a club on their college campus and grow it so that they're helping people.
Well, a very simple thing here that I think we could probably agree upon. A book club is probably really smart. And that sounds really lame and like very like simple and simplistic, but it's true. A simple book club. And like I have a whole list of books that if I had friends who are interested in business with me, which was like one in school, because everyone's like, but I want to be an adjuster, or I want to like get A's, right? Like screw A's. But I literally would go through these books with one person and I would learn things. I'd write them all down. I'd write all my notes. In fact, I still have my notebooks from this. So I have like notebooks. I'm like Cliff's notes, like I did that for these books. And then we go over it. And then they would read one and they would go over with me too. And the same with board reviews. Like board reviews, I did board reviews. I wrote all my notes and I sold them to my friends. And I paid off my board reviews. But point being, you go through like a business, like seriously, a business book club, and you have a mentor that's going to tell you what books you read. And then that person isn't responsible for your knowledge, or just responsible to encourage you to read certain books, and you and your friends can go over them. I highly doubt there's anything like that in any of these schools where it's like nerdy enough to go over like tax law, and like.
So I'm gonna just rattle off the tree, right? So the best book for entrepreneurs, or not the best, but like, what are your top 3 books that you would recommend college students study on entrepreneurship?
I'm gonna read them right now. Ready? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Hold on, I'm gonna show you. This book, which I don't know if you can find anymore, this is from school, and I still go through it. So Incorporate and Grow Rich. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, and then The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Those are probably the top 3 for me right now.
And now communication, being a better teacher, being a better communicator.
So nonviolent communication is really good. I would say that Sell Like Crazy is a great book as well. And then let me see, I'll pick one really good one here. Oh, Lasting Purpose by Sid Williams would be phenomenal.
Yes. And then within the context of the philosophy, being a better thinker, anything on that topic? Thinker, scientist, artist, science, sure. Philosophy, art.
Well, anything green books can be really good. I think if you're going to be a chiropractor, you need to understand your philosophy at least. And then the Palmer's Laws of Life is probably a great one to start. It's thin, it's basic, like chiropractic philosophy. Another one for nonviolent communication is a great one. So you actually learn how to communicate with people without triggering. So having discussions with people and actually like inspiring them to find their own answers. Let's see. And then, well, there's a few, but there's a really good one that's here. The E-Myth Chiropractor. That's Michael Gerber and my original coach, Frank Savinsky. This book is phenomenal because it goes through the E-Myth, which is great. But then after every chapter, there's an extra chapter just for the chiropractor. This book was life-changing with communication and mindset.
Well, thank you so much for all of that. I really appreciate it. As we sort of wrap up here, can you kind of provide a little bit of your vision, or just talk about your life, like the life that you've set up for yourself as a chiropractor, because we're really just trying to expose prospective students, current students, to what life could look like. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're a high performer, but can you just talk about the life that you've constructed for yourself, how it looks, how it feels, maybe your schedule? Obviously, you're atypical as far as being involved with different projects, but just talk about your life, your family, your business, your connections.
Well, so I do have 2 kids and a wife, and all are phenomenal human beings. My kids are always known as the nice kids and the kids that everyone gets along with, but not like pushover nice. Like everyone just wants to be involved with them. I think that's a big chiropractic plus, but also is that we just love them in a different way. my schedule when I see patients only 2.5 days a week. I'm doing Mondays and Thursdays from 8:30 to 6:30, actually 8:15 to 6:30, and then Wednesdays at 7:15 to 1. And then my off days that we call rainmaker days. And those days are days you work on the business. Like I have multiple businesses, so I'm working on many businesses. Um, but everything is so streamlined now that these days I'm mainly just doing coaching calls. And actually I get interviewed a lot, and I have time to hang out with my family and have lunch and go take the kids to gymnastics. And my Fridays I almost don't do anything. Now before COVID pandemic stuff, I traveled every weekend teaching, which actually was great in the grand scheme of things for chiropractic, but wasn't great for the family. So the pandemic stopped that and has reduced it quite a lot. So I get to spend most of my weekends with my family, like 3-day weekends. My wife and I have a day together, and then we have a whole weekend with the family. So we go ski to Tahoe. We take trips all the time. And then we're homebodies too. Like we just love just be together. So we do as much as we can that way.
And then maybe just expanding it out to your viewpoint on the profession, the chiropractic profession. How is it growing, evolving, changing? What are some trends that you're seeing? Are you seeing a positive uptick on the capabilities of the current chiropractic graduates? Like what, maybe speak positively and then also speak to some of the negatives or the obstacles that you see are involved in front of people.
So I used to be really, really involved with the profession to the point where it's almost toxic, to be real. There's a lot of infighting in chiropractic. When I relinquished that control and responsibility to the ether and said, I'm not going to be a part of that anymore, I started actually enjoying chiropractic again. So politically speaking, I think we have a long way to go. But when you really look at where we are, the only thing holding us back is us. So when you're getting into school, don't get stuck in the technique wars. Don't get stuck in the philosophical, principled versus non-principled world. Just start accepting that we're all here taking care of people, and that's our goal. I will say though that I think in a chiropractic dogmatic sense, I see less dogma within the techniques. I think I'm starting to see a lot more people accepting anyone as long as your common goal is taking care of people and taking care of subluxations and removing them. I'm very much okay with adding in supplement stuff if necessary at this point. And as long as you're taking care of people and you're doing the right thing for their system, I think that's a positive thing. As long as chiropractic is always your primary thing and it's principally based subluxation work, I'm all for it. When it comes to the students coming out right now, we have a very interesting crew because you got like Gen Zs coming out, and it's interesting watching because it's like everything works in cycles. So I'm starting to see like the Gen Zs are similar to the elder millennials, Gen X's in a way that they actually want to do well and they want to kind of do it themselves. But on the negative, they also want to do it on themselves, but as long as they have a cushion behind them in case they fall. We didn't have that, so it's a different mentality. So I'd say that with the people I've been talking to a lot recently who are going to graduate, a lot of them are still in the mindset they deserve success. Like I graduate, I should do well because I'm a doctor. And that's just how it goes. 80% of us are going to fail in the first 3 years. That's an actual statistic. And it's mainly because there is a lack of education of the business, but there's also an ego involved saying, well, even though I don't know that information in business, I should still be provided with my success. It doesn't work like that. So the ones who are willing to go the extra step and learn everything outside of the chiropractic world on how to run a business, those are your successful people. But I do start seeing more people inclined to go that direction, which is awesome.
Just to be proactive in this dialogue, if you're throwing that statistic, I'm not sure where you got that statistic, but let's just say that that's a real truth, whether we have it studied or not. Maybe you can reference that, I don't know. But point is if there's a large percentage of students that are not making it in practice, how do we set them up to have backup plans? How do we give them other outlets that maybe, hey, practice is not working for you, you should go into research or teaching or writing books or speaking. Find your passion. It might not. I'm just curious what you have to say to that. What seems to be a large group of the students that are in school right now.
I think you're actually nailing it already. My idea and my thought with this is that if you aren't going to make it as a chiropractor, like in practice, you have amazing credentials to do other things. There's a lot of health, um, like corporations and stuff, who will look for people like us as experts to work through new like designs of products and whatnot. There's lots of schools you can work for that you can support, and by teaching, just simply a lot of your teachers in school are people who didn't do well in clinic, but they're amazing educators, so that's why they do what they do. Writing books is phenomenal. Creating like online health seminars, like since COVID, online telehealth is humongous. And even telehealth for the chiropractic and business mindset is humongous. So there's so many things that we can do to inspire each other. And I think some of my favorite chiropractors that I have personally worked with and people I look up to aren't even practicing ever, but they're amazing philosophers. John DeMartini, for instance. There's a doc, Jamie Motley, who I went to school with, who's a phenomenal radiologist, and she wanted to go that direction. So there are many things to do, but if you start getting in practice and realize this isn't for me, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means that we have to make a detour. And then it's okay to ask for help to do so, instead of being stuck in like, I got to make this work, Like, it's okay to accept that and move forward.
And then I don't know if you'd agree with this, but maybe just recognizing what the patterns are showing us, we should actually build pathways for students to prepare to be researchers, or prepare to go in the DAC direction, or prepare to become teachers at the schools, and craft ways that they can better understand what the income potential is, other outlets that they can make supplemental income, or make their own impacts in their own way. I think
one of the best ways to get to that is literally ask the person who you see doing it. Just ask for help, ask to hang out. A lot of people are too proud to ask for anything, and then they get stuck. And I don't abide by those rules. Like Dr. Savinsky, who wrote the E-Myth Chiropractor, right? He always said there's always room at the top. So go and find the person you want to climb on top of and stand on their shoulders. Why not? And what's the worst thing I can say is like, no, I'm too busy. Well, great. That's awesome. Good for you. Can you recommend someone else I can chat with? So I don't want to ever see someone saying that, oh, well, it didn't work, so I'm going to be a bartender, I'm going to be a waiter. And everyone gets really stuck. This, I guarantee very well. Everyone gets stuck in this whole, I got student loans I have to pay off. I have to pay off the student loans. You know what? That's the last loan you should worry about. Like that shit can go forever. And that's fine, because when you're looking at creditors, looking at people who are going to get you a mortgage or a car payment, they look at student loans and go like, yeah, you should have student loans. It's not going to affect you.
There's good debt and bad debt, right?
Exactly. This is an investment type of debt, and that's an okay debt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sweet. Just another creative question. Do you have any sort of visionary ideas for our profession to find ways to reach college students, colleges? Right now, I imagine in the college campus health centers, there's no representation in the guidance counseling conversation.
That's usually my thing. We got to get people actually adjusting in the health centers. We need chiropractors in the health centers, not just on sports teams. We need them like in the gyms there. We need them at the health centers. We need chiropractors teaching science and philosophy, business, all these things in normal traditional colleges and high schools. That's where we go to, because you got to go to the root of it. And we got to show that we're successful. We're not quacks. We're successful in our own right. And we also can stand right next to another person who's doing the exact opposite of what we do and hold hands and say, but our same purpose is getting people well.
And then you being a dad, I'm a dad now too. I've been to the library. I recognize there's no books on chiropractic for babies, for toddlers, for young kids, young adults. What do you think about putting that into the fabric of students, clubs, creating books that are for kids? Because it doesn't take a lot. Obviously illustration matters, but storytelling is one of the hallmark skill sets in today's world, right? Whether it be through social media, it can be in these kids' books. What do you think about that direction?
It's phenomenal. And you can think, even with the illustration thing, like, I'm a crap drawer, of course, but dude, there's someone who will draw anything for you for right now for $500, and they'll give you all the rights to it. There's no excuses anymore. There's someone who will do anything for you for a certain amount of money. It's not that much money too. I think part of it, though, is having your kids live as a representation of what that story would be, so they can tell your story too. Just like a little proud dad moment. Last week we went to this thing. My daughter's in first grade. It's a Chinese New Year celebration, and then also they make these posters of their gratitude, and their gratitude is like, "Mom, Dad," was just sweet, Then all her friends, and then chiropractic was under it. And when she said it, she had to pick three, and she said, I think Mom, Dad, chiropractic. And she looked at me. I'm like, "Aw." But then her friend Luna, right next to her, said chiropractic as well, which is so adorable. And apparently she talks about like chiropractic. Like today, she actually went in and started telling her teacher how many people I saw yesterday. Like, she's proud of it. She's proud of the impact that's being made, which is cool. So
that's not just a proud dad moment. That's like a proud profession moment. And I think that's like that's kind of the new wave of what we should be looking to create more of, right? That's what we should celebrate, acknowledge, promote, and actually create prompts where it's like, how can we get more kids that are receiving chiropractic care, that are experiencing the chiropractic lifestyle, talking about it? And so anyway, I really appreciate.
When you're in practice, let me just throw in, when you're in practice and you have someone who their kids clearly need care, because everyone needs chiropractic care, in my opinion. Like, everyone should at least be checked. And then you got the parent who's like desperate for care, and they're trying to figure out who is more important, who should get it. And most of the time they're actually going to choose themselves, the adults will, which is just the reality of it. Make it affordable. Make that affordable. Like, my rule is like, the parents are under care, then the kids are free. Like, I just make it happen because I don't want them to make that decision. I'll make it for them. You know what I'm saying? So like, we got that philosophy in our practice. And then we got kids who I'm 14 years in. I literally am seeing they're in their 20s now. Like, that's mind-boggling, but they're still coming in getting adjusted, or they're in college. Every time they're back, they're getting checked. Pretty cool.
Amazing. Yeah, it speaks, as we wrap up, I want to acknowledge your time. It speaks to what you said at the very beginning of this conversation, which is that you chose this profession because you wanted to be connecting and building relationships with the people on an ongoing basis, and not just taking care of them and then never seeing them again. So that's like the fruits of your labor, literally, is like, planting seeds right now that 20 years from now you're going to still be enjoying. That's the amazing part of practice, that I've also experienced.
I think it was this year I had my first patient who I saw as like a teenager have her baby and bring her baby in. I'm like, wow, that's a mine F right there. That's where I'm getting more and more grave. I'm pretty proud.
I was about to go there. Any final thoughts, any final messages as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I'd say, I really want everyone to go into the mindset of taking care of people and getting people well. And then also making sure that you understand this is a business. It's not just like you're going to adjust someone, they're going to pay you. Like, there's actual business to it. We need successful chiropractors. And successful chiropractors doesn't mean how many people you see. It also means how much money you bring in so you could live stress-free and enjoy your moment. We all go in waves financially because that's just how owning a business is. But having someone help you and hold your hand along the way, it doesn't have to be a coach or mentor, but even a best friend who you can always have a comrade with you is really important. But in school, that was even more important. So when I was in school, I had like my two best friends. We're called the Three Amigos, and everyone loved us because we're just like always with ourselves, but we still like let a few people in every once in a while. But we never bothered anyone, but we all had different strengths, and those strengths we capitalized on in the trio. And then we all taught each other, and we continue that after school. And we always we find other people in those realms, but always make sure you have a camaraderie around you,